G'day gang, that's the outlook for today. Almost 1 o'clock and the fog still hasn't lifted, but I'm going to warm myself up today with a little bit of this. I'm going to change that alternator down in here. You can see him right there. You can see the belt starting to shred. The alternator bearing gets a squeal in it, and so the owner asked me if I'd change the alternator out for him. I said, yeah, sure, we'll do that, mate. Bring it round and leave it with me. So he's bought himself a couple of belts, and he's got himself an alternator, second-hand alternator. I've got really no faith in second-hand alternators, but nevertheless, we'll fit it on for him. Should realistically be 2 bolts. I'm going to get some stuff out of the way, get the air cleaner out of the way and some pipes and things, and make the job a bit easier. Here we are, the method in the madness. Of course, we've moved lots of things out of the way, which makes it much easier to get into amongst stuff. Now I know there's a long bolt down the bottom here, and there's a small one at the top right there, and the tensioner is which one can you see? Alright, okay, down picture. The tensioner is that fella down in there, and so with all this open, I can get a breaker bar down there and get onto that tensioner and pull it back. We'll peel the belt off it, and then disconnect the battery and pull the alternator out of it. Disconnect the wires and pull the alternator out of it. Should not have to pull the water hose off. This vehicle, by the way, look, here's the second-hand alternator he's given me. It's a Nissan Navara. D40 2012 turbo diesel 2.5, I believe. Yeah, so and there's his new belts. Nothing wrong with that. Now, a good idea before you release the belts is you do yourself a little picture up. The orientation of the belt, that's a tensioner, crank, fan, an idler, alternator, air conditioning. And I've told many people this, and they say, oh yeah, but I can just Google that. The thing is, if you physically look at it and draw it down, that shape's getting better in your head, because you can get lost if you're not careful. And not all things on Google are 100%. But anyway, so it's a little favour for yourself. You just draw yourself a little picture, put it aside somewhere. Now I need to get this other second belt off that's down in there, and that runs the power steer. Yeah, that runs the power steering. So I'll get that belt off, and I'll get that fella out of the way, and we'll pull the other belt out of the way, and yeah, we should be ready to pull that. Okay, now that all the belts are out of the way, you can reach down and just physically give all these pulleys a spin. The tensioner, you know, everything that the belt goes on, because it's pointless putting the belt on. We're looking for the reason that this belt has frayed, and I did hear the alternator belt, the bearing in the alternator squawking. It's quiet at the moment. You can't feel anything in there, but I heard that squawking. So and on this one, everything spins around nice and freely. They're not noisy or anything like that. So And I do like to have a bit of a look. Oh my goodness gracious. Is that what I think I see? Oh no. I like to have a bit of a look around and just take note of things. How much oil's in, especially on these diesel things. How much oil's in the turbo. There's not a lot in that one, thankfully, for the guy. And I think that turbo's had the sausage. Oh no. No, she's turning alright. It's just my fat sausage fingers won't fit in there good and spin around. But so we've had a look down all in there. Everything looks good. Go through all your ribs on your pulleys, just to make sure that there's no bits of old belt down in there, because that's not going to help the cause. And yeah, okay, so we've got the battery disconnected there. We'll get on with some wires and we should be able to get onto the 2 bolts and slide him out on the floor. And so with our alternator loose, as you can see, with the airbox and all that stuff all the other way there, we can quite simply, maybe two-handedly, one will do, we can get him out. I prefer to break as few seals as possible when I do work on cars and vehicles. Reason being, you don't know what you could disturb that's going to create another issue. And so it's few little bits. You know, as you can see, I haven't disturbed the cooling system. So if this guy has a problem with the cooling system and says, you know, mate, since you played with it, now it's getting hot or it's got a water leak or something like that, well, that won't be my responsibility because we haven't touched it. So we'll get the other alternator and we'll pop him in the hole and put it all back the way it was, and hopefully it's got no more squealy noises. Because we can't guarantee that second-hand alternator, remember, he's already got one that's second-hand. So while the belts are off and it's all fresh in my mind, we have a look in here, we can see all that's pieces of the other belt as it started to pull apart. Actually doesn't look to be too old, being a Dayco poly rib, so it's not a genuine one. I think it's 240,000 kilometres or something on this vehicle. So 4PK 815 is that one. Good start, look. 4PK 815, so that one's a goodie. The one that started to fall apart, that's been on there somewhat longer, but it's still a Dayco poly rib. 7PK 17 17 something, 09. $12.75. Could it be? I'll measure them up before I try and put it on. Also, we noticed down here. Where are you? Can you see that? Down. Torch. I know it doesn't look like it's broken from where you're being, but that, you can see the crack in that hose there. She's broken. It's there. I don't know if that's been from the belt whipping around, because that looks on a kind of a pretty radical angle, like that's, well, I suppose it could have pulled it down. Yeah, it's suppose I could have pulled it down, because I believe that should have been standing up. Something more like that, I believe. Oh, that's not such a bad one. It's just from his compressor to the condenser. So we'll have to buy a new one of them and get it regassed. But you know, we've noted down what's happened here. Anyway, let's get the old one back on. I mean the new old one, old new one. You know the one. So here's a little trick. Most alternators and things like that, bolt-on accessories like an alternator or a steering pump or some other mechanism. It generally has some sort of a what would you call it? It's a thing. Insert. This one's an insert that as you tighten the nut, it pushes the insert and takes up the clearance here between the alternator and the bracket. You've got to have some clearance, otherwise you're never going to slide that down into position. So the easiest thing I do is give it a bang with a hammer, and I can see that it's gone back. I probably might give it one more whack just for the fun of it, like that. Well and truly back now. When I go and slide that into position, it won't fight with me. And so the new second-hand ones are back on. Secured, everything's back in place, all the bolts are back in place. Now, I missed one of my golden rules before I even start working on things. This is too small for this vehicle, so I'm going to have to send him or ring him up, tell him to come and either get it take this as a sample, or just go and get the right one. You can't really read the numbers on it, so, but it's certainly not a 1275, it's 17 something or other. So they might be able to go off that other number there. But yeah. So that's it, stalemate for me right now. I can't really put all the rest of his stuff on until I get those belts on. Again, making room for doing things, you know what I mean? It's not so much a how-to, but a method in which I go about it. I apply it to everything I work on, actually. Sometimes taking the long cut makes the job easier and quicker. You know, I could have tried to fiddle about undoing all this and leaving other things on, but just get stuff out of the way, bam, bam, done. You know, I guess I better give him a whistle and tell him to go, get him to come and get me the right belt. It's always something, isn't it? Now we're a couple of hours later and he's come back with the right belt. Happy days. We'll fit that on. And then we'll put it all back together, obviously, and we'll have a listen. We'll make sure we don't get any squeaking and squealing coming out of that alternator. Well, we've got his brand new belt on there, followed by I followed my little plan that I drew, and everything's sitting in its places. I'll put the rest of it together. Guy can come get it, and in the blink of an eye or two, looks like nobody's ever been there. Let's start it up and listen for squeals. It's overdue for service. Now, when I heard the squealing, it was probably running for about 5 minutes, so we'll just about 5 minutes. We'll just check these belts, make sure they're freaking hell. The torches have got to do that. Yeah, everything's going around okay. Yep. So we'll give it 5 minutes to come back. That's been probably about 5 minutes, something like that. The temperature's starting to go up a little bit. And I'm going to give it a little rev from here, and you could hear before a real high-pitched squeal. About 1800 RPM. No, it's good now. Now I can just hear the turbo spooling. Yeah, I think that's good. Job done. Check you later. It gets dark early this time of the year. Fog's coming back down again. Top of 13 degrees today. Have a good one. You know what? It's been nearly 3 years since I've had a cigarette. And I've got to apologise to every non-smoker out there that I spoke to over those 45 years. And apologise for the stench that I left in your faces. Yeah. No turning back for me on that now, I'll tell you now. That's just a memory. Disturbing one at that, but nevertheless.